Foul is Fair, Chapter 26, Much Obliged. "We're here to escort you," the red cap in the 49er's hat said, taking a few more steps towards Megan, "to make sure that the sword gets to where it belongs." Megan couldn't help but notice, now that she was seeing the fairy things for what they really were, that the bat looked a lot more metallic, with numerous spikes along its length. "You'll forgive me, Pedar, if I don't exactly trust you," Kasha snarled at him, the two cats moving to her side. "Ah, what's the matter, Cass? Don't like even odds?" he sing-songed back. "Just come along quietly. We're not here to hurt you." The moth-winged things looked between each other, and the sound of wind whispering through the trees arose again. Megan guessed that they may have either been surprised about the "not hurting" part, or were amending it to "yet." Kasha was back-talking without hesitation, but the whole group was injured, and Megan still couldn't move. Then she heard a whispered song in her ear, hints of a tune. Fixating on the music, she hummed the music Aisling was feeding her, and the fear lessened. She hummed louder, quickly drawing the attention of the creatures around them, and Pedar forgot about Kasha to focus entirely on Megan. This time, with the music reverberating in her mind, she stared right back at him and then stepped forward. This time, it was the red cap who retreated a step. The hesitation didn't last long. He snarled, raised the weapon, and rushed at her. There was a movement to one side and a flash of blue as Pedar swung the spiked club. When Megan's brain caught up with the events, Justin was standing in between her and Pedar, and the Clive Solish had cleaved directly through the red cap's weapon. The Jenny Greenteeth hissed and started forward, then stopped when Justin turned to point the flaming sword at her. The other red caps tensed, then backed away on finding Kasha and the cats alike growling at them. The whispering in the wind picked up. Megan looked towards the group of not pixies, who seemed to be directing their magics as far as she could tell. For the moment, they looked intently at Justin and his sword, gesturing towards him, then looked at each other, confused, when their magic seemed to wash over him without effect. Louder this time, Aisling hummed a different tune in Megan's ear, one recognizable from the music book. Megan picked it up, singing the words this time, and gestured. All three of the moth-winged things were lifted out of their tree branch by a sudden, fierce breeze and carried back into the woods. "Who sent you?" Kasha asked Pedar, and the rest of the Unseelie gang backed away. "Can't tell you. Sworn to secrecy," he responded, not backing away like the others, but not looking nearly as threatening anymore either. Megan glanced at the will-o-wisp, which was drifting back into the woods. "I have a guess. I suppose you can't tell us where you plan to escort us either." "Couldn't tell you if I wanted to," he replied, standing his ground even as the hag slipped back into the water. "We don't need an escort, and we know where we're going." She had a brief impulse to tell Justin or Kasha to hit him to get the point across, before another thought hit, admiring his conviction. She settled on, "Get out of here." To her surprise, the red cap nodded, reaching down to pick up the other half of his club and backing away. "Sure, we just wanted to make sure you got there safe and sound. Looks like you got a handle on it." Then his grin returned. "No hard feelings?" Megan's first thought was of her father's words, "distinctly not idea people." She nodded back, surprising herself a little at her own choice of words. No hard feelings. She was more surprised that she felt entirely sincere about it. "But you owe me one." She was even more surprised at his response, especially in light of what she'd heard about the weight of favors here. Instead of more snarling and posturing, he bowed deeply to her. "You've got it, Your Highness." He glanced around at the other red caps, and the moth-winged things started to peek their heads back out. "Come on, you cowardly bastards, let's go." When Megan looked around at the others, she noticed Lonnie in particular, staring incredulously. "Did that just happen?" "I'm actually not sure," Megan responded, a little confused, with more time to process, but suddenly feeling a lot less hurt and a lot more confident in their mission. Justin sheathed the sword and moved to Megan's right side. "Thank you. I'm not sure what you did with the magic, but..." "That wasn't her," Cassia said. "That's one of the things the sword is all about. How do you think those heroes of old Ireland stood up against sorcerers and the Fomori and all sorts of magical this and that? You're not invulnerable, but a few sprite tricks aren't going to slow you down. Oh, and you should see what it does to undead things." "Undead? Don't worry," Cassia said. "I can outrun them." "That's actually not very reassuring," Megan told her. Cassia hooked the cats up to their chariot, now not only working, but scratch-free. "Sure it is. I feel much better." She helped Lanny up onto the chariot with her, whether out of thanks for the repairs or because she still had the worst injuries wasn't clear. In preparation for the trip, the Count landed on Megan's shoulder, Aisling dismounting and crawling around the back of her neck to sit on Megan's other shoulder. "Besides, no one has seen any undead things in forever. There's some cults with necromantic leanings around the world here and there, but they're probably harmless. And I guess there might be a vampire or two in Washington, D.C., but that's just some kind of a given, right?" the pixie said. "You're no help either," Megan replied, before setting off after Cassia and the chariot, with the others close behind. After a few more miles of travel, Justin turned, heading off the path and deeper into the woodlands. "The castle is this way," Lonnie pointed. "We're not going to the castle," Justin said. "The stone's this way." Lonnie and Megan exchanged a glance. Then Megan turned to follow. A moment later, Cassia turned the chariot and moved to follow as well. As they walked, Aisling started muttering. For some time and a few miles, Megan didn't pay it much mind. Then she heard the strangest thing she'd heard yet from Aisling, at least given what she knew of the pixie. "Huh, I'm not even sure where this is." Cassia apparently heard her too. "Well, if we get ambushed again, our hard-working young man can apparently handle things with one hand tied against his side," she said, grinning. Justin just stared straight ahead. "There it is," he said, heading for a very small clearing. In it was a gray stone, perfectly cylindrical, sitting on the ground. "Well, Justin, get the sword in the rock so we can get on with the rest of the job," said Megan. "Matters of life and death and all." As Justin nodded and drew the blade, Aisling suddenly spoke hurriedly, even by Aisling standards. "Megan, I just remembered where this is, and that's not a rock. I've only ever come here with the Unseelie King and..." "Aisling, I'm sure it's a great story with a lot of interesting definitions, but let Justin finish his deal first." And in a flurry of white and blue sparks, Justin stabbed the blade into the stone.